Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Guardians of the Future podcast. I'm your host, Justin Latta. Took a week off there in between, just trying to reset after the trading deadline, talking about the moves the Guardians made, shifts in the system, some promotions and whatnot. So our last episode was 2 weeks ago. Maybe feel free to go back and take a listen to that if you haven't yet. Just kind of wrapping up the trading deadline from the Guardians and trying to catch up on things. So I know people have been asking me about my top prospect rankings. I'm still working on that. I actually have an interview with Guardians President of Player Development tomorrow, Rob Serfolio, on Tuesday. So I'm hoping to get some information there, and that might shape my rankings a little bit. So I've been waiting on that interview to finish my rankings off real quick. I've got them done. I just want to be able to shift things around if I find any interesting details out from Rob about the system. So those will be coming shortly. I promise. I do have them done. I just want to make sure I feel good about where they're at. Thank you all for listening, for downloading, subscribing, rating, reviewing, all that good stuff. If you haven't done any of that in a while, if you're just listening, would love to get a review on it. I think Spotify allows reviews now. I know, obviously, Apple Podcasts allows reviews. I don't know. I'm surprised Google doesn't allow reviews yet. They should. Tell a friend. Find me on other social media platforms. I'm still on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days. I'm over on Blue Sky. I don't have any codes to throw out there, but if I do, I'll let you guys know. I'm trying to use Threads too. I'm trying to use everywhere until Lord knows what happens to this other websites out here. You can still find the newsletter at nextyearincleveland.substack.com. As always, that'll be in the link in the show description. All right. Got a couple things to get to today. First, the good news. Kyle Manzardo is rehabbing. He has played a couple of games down in Arizona as the DH so far. He's got a hit and a walk, I believe, and a couple of at-bats. Looking pretty good. I like the swing. I've saw Chris Welsh of Prospect One and The Athletic and some other podcasts who does really good work out there. Is on Twitter at Is It Welsh or It's the Welsh. I can't remember what his Twitter handle is, but he does really good work, and he's got some videos from Arizona. He had videos on Kyle Manzardo, Jaison, Chorio, Ralphy, Velazquez, exciting stuff, good stuff. So go check that out. Really enjoy his work, but exciting to see Manzardo rehabbing to get back on the comeback trail. I would imagine they'll probably send the AAA for a few games, maybe a week, depending on when he's ready to go. Hopefully, it'll be sometime in the next 2 weeks or so to get his feet back under him after what he's doing in Arizona. So September call-ups, we are a little over 10 days away still. By the time you're listening to this, it'll be about 10, 11 days, September 1st. Remember the rules on September call-ups now, too. It used to be you can add anybody on their 40-man roster to your September call-ups. Now it is only 2 players. That's unfortunate. I hate that rule. I think that you should be able to call up. I don't know if you need to be able to call up, if you have a 26-man roster, and you need to call up the rest of your 40-man roster, but I think you can call up a few more than that and just, dress 26 or 28 each day and have a couple guys inactive. I don't know why they just cut it down to 2, especially why the Players Association, I don't know, did the Player Association even agree to that? Because that limits service time and jobs. I can't remember how that came about, but I hate the rule. But anyway, maybe we'll see Kyle Manzardo in September. I don't know. That'd be fun. We'll see what happens with him there. Other September call-ups. So, you've got around baseball. You've got the Yankees just doing a couple of call-ups here this week. There's other call-ups that are happening around baseball because I think Mason Wynn is up, and I'm trying to think who else has been up recently, but there have been guys who are called up because they will not accrue enough service time the rest of the 2023 season in order to lose prospect eligibility and rookie eligibility in 2024. Teams will probably still have to be a little bit judicious in terms of at-bats and innings pitched for some of these guys if they don't go over the threshold. But in terms of service time on the roster, I believe it's 45 days. So at this point in the season, there's not enough time left for those guys to go over that limit. They certainly still could have enough at-bats and innings pitched to surpass their rookie limits for next year, but the guys who are being called up at this point this season for that reason are probably not going to get enough at-bats because the teams are going to be cognizant of that. But I do wonder how much of the draft pick incentive is playing into that now. And I think it also makes sense, too. If you have a player that you think has a chance to play on your opening day roster, whether it's opening day next year or at some point in 2024, I think it makes a lot more sense to go out and add this guy at the end of 2023, even if you're not playing him every day. Sorry, my camera's giving me some issues here if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not playing him every day, but you can let him get his feet wet in the majors. Your first opening day is always special, right? Like that, every player, there's always nerves with that. But if you let a guy come up and get acclimated in the month of September and he's around certain players, he's not playing every day, he just gets familiar with the ballpark, the clubhouse, teammates, report times, gets a couple at bats, that can, ease some things off going into the next season. He's already familiar with a lot of things at the ballpark and just how things are run at the big league level, coaches and schedules and things like that. That can take a lot of the uncertainty and I don't know, pressure, but it can take some of it off of them. That's important. You always want to put your guys in the best position to succeed, and a lot of that does have to do with mental focus. So for a guy like Kyle Manzardo, if Cleveland feels like, hey, this is the guy we want him to claim the first base job opening day next year, and they should, based on the trade they made. They should want him to be the opening day first baseman next year, or DH, however they decide to play it with Josh Naylor, provided he's healthy. You should get him some time in the majors this year. Let him get acclimated, especially to Cleveland. He's new to the organization completely. Let him come up and meet some of the other players on the major league roster. Let him get familiar with that. See what happens there. And I would also extend this to George Valera. Now, hasn't been a great year for George Valera overall. He had the hamate issue again. That this is the second. I guess this is the third time he want to be technical. So he had a hamate issue way back in, I think, 2018. It goes back a couple of years when he was first in pro ball. He had the hamate issue. I think it was back when he was in Arizona going to Mahoning Valley. Then he had a hamstring issue in Mahoning Valley. He was out for a little bit for. And then he had the hamate pop up again this spring after he had surgery over the offseason. So, twice this hamate injury popped him. And then he had a hamstring injury when he got back to Columbus after the hamate problem. That sent him back a few weeks. So it hasn't been a good year in terms of that. And Valera's had a hard time staying on the field. I think last year was really the first year he had a decent amount of playing time in terms of how long he played during the season. Just unfortunate the way that's gone for him. But data suggests that he's hitting the ball better lately. He's hitting the ball over the fence. He's got some extra base hits. He's hitting the ball hard. Even his outs are going for high exit velocities. He's getting driving the ball in the air. Look, Will Brennan, Oscar Gonzalez, I've made my feelings clear about Oscar Gonzalez at this point. Those guys are not laying claim to the right field job. And if you want George Valera possibly to usurp them next year, it doesn't take a lot to overcome, because it's not like those guys, like I said, those guys haven't played very well. And I still like Will Brennan a lot. I think he can be a good major league player. But he hasn't laid claim to the job. He has not took his opportunity yet. And if you think George Valera is some sort of offensive piece that can help you in 2024, especially with a team that needs power and he has it, are they going to live with the strikeouts he's going to have? Who knows? They didn't want to live with Nolan Jones and Will Benson strikeouts, so they moved on so they could keep Oscar Gonzalez and Will Brennan, who don't strike out, but they hit a ton of ground balls to second base or third base. And, Will Brennan plays good defense and runs, and Oscar Gonzalez has a fun walk-up song. Are they going to live with George Valera strikeouts? I don't know, but now seems like a good time to find out. And you're not going to obviously get any serious information out of him in terms of what he can do for you next season in September, even if he's playing 3 or 4 games or 5 games, whatever it is. But if you reasonably want him to be part of your roster next year and you think that he has a potential to add some power to your lineup that you desperately need, if you have enough invested in him to think, okay, next year's got to be the year. We have to get him to the majors next year. He has to prove that he can help us out in the future and be part of the squad. September seems like a good time to call him up, especially right now. And he, the stats may not look good, but he is playing much better lately. He had an 0 for 4 on Sunday, and some of the batted ball data was good on Sunday too. So he's hitting the ball hard. He's feeling good about himself. He's on the field. It would be a good time to go up there and let him kind of go through those things. I think it would make a lot of sense given where the franchise is at right now and their desperate need for outfield help. Would be a good call up. Other guys in September, I don't know. I'm still pushing for Cody Morris to be one of the guys, because for me, there's no reason. I've talked about this on Lockdown Guardians. If you've listened over there's no reason Cody Morris should be in AAA right now. For a while they were running out Daniel Norris and Michael Kelly. James Karinchak is back, and I can only assume James Karinchak is in Cleveland because Cleveland is desperate for him to rebuild some sort of value, and they feel like they can trade him this offseason. I know Jeff and I joked on Monday's Lockdown Guardians that the Guardians are showcasing him, and if you listen to me long enough, I hate the term showcasing because it's not a thing in baseball, but guess what? I may have to make an exception to that claim. They might be trying to quote unquote showcase him because they may be trying to rebuild some value there. But if it's me, I want Cody Morris up there because Cody Morris is now 26. I believe he's going to be 27 next season. You have got to get that guy in the majors while he's healthy and see what he can do. You've got to figure out if he's going to stay healthy enough in any role and the stuff is good. You've got to see if he's part of the future. You've got to get him major league reps and see what his role is going to be. So, Valera and Morris, there's an option there. There's some people who said Bryan Lavastida. I just don't think that's going to happen in September. I really don't. And I'm going to cover that here in a few segments too about Lavastida in the backup catching position with Cam Gallagher hurt. And then there's Joey Cantillo. I'd very much like to see Joey Cantillo in September too. I'm going to talk about him a little later in the podcast as well this week, but I think he's played well enough and earned enough. It's a big risk to put 4 or 5 rookies in the rotation if you count Xavier Curry. Xavier Curry is in the starting rotation as of right now, and you've got the other 4 are rookies the other 3 are rookies besides Noah Syndergaard. You're going to add Joey Cantillo and make it 5. I will say Joey Cantillo is pitching on Noah Syndergaard's day still in the minors. If Joey Cantillo pitches Tuesday, he will continue to line up under Noah Syndergaard starts. It's kind of conspiracy theory sounding, I guess, but at the same time, it might be a good option. He's also one of those guys who I say would earn it. September call-ups too are a time to reward players who have worked hard this season, who have improved their stock, have done something worth celebrating. And Joey Cantillo pitching April through September would be worth celebrating. Number 1. Number 2, he's just pitched very well in general. He has had some bumps along the way in AAA, but he's missing bats. His control's better lately. I'll talk about him a little bit more, but I know. So Morris, Cantillo, Valera in September. I don't see anybody else. I know Jose Teno is just up. There's nobody else in this roster I'm calling up in September. Those are your 3, and you can shift through. Maybe you can call up all 3. Maybe there's somebody else, whether it's Karinchak or any of the relievers who are struggling. Eli Morgan, Tim Herron, who's been up and down this year. Maybe you move through one of them to see what happens on this roster. I don't think they're going to bump Cole Calhoun because they seem to really value the 36-year-old veteran presence in the locker room, which, otherwise they'd be a young team. We'll see if somebody picks up something from him next season because there's been stories like that. The Cole Calhoun thing is interesting. There's always stories that, young players go on to say, well, I really learned from this veteran when I was around him. And it might have been a guy who was in the twilight of his career. Like we hear all the time about guys who learned from Jason Giambi, who learned from Blake Parker, Brian Shaw. Like those guys were not playing well. They really didn't need spots on the roster and they had them. But you hear players say, well, I really learned from playing with this guy and being in the clubhouse and every day. Maybe Cole Calhoun's one of those guys. I don't know. We're going to find out, I suppose, next year. Maybe he won't be. I'm just saying that's something I can think of reasoning wise. But if he's holding back George Valera at bats, if Will Brennan's holding back George Valera at bats or Austin Gonzalez, not good. Not good. A lineup of Steven Kwan, Jose Ramirez, anybody playing first base. I don't know. Okay, Gabby Arias. So Kwan in left, Jose, Gabby Arias, George Valera, Andres Jimenez, Will Brennan, Brian Rocchio, Bo Naylor. I'll even give you Ramon Laureano just to get him some playing time. Like those guys should be playing every day, and you're going to see what's happening with them. So I'd like to see some at-bats from those guys. So those are the 3 I would say September call-ups. As far as late season promotions are concerned, so you've seen some aggressive promotions. I guess not aggressive. Like you've seen some draft picks promoted. Like Dylan Cruz should have been in Double-A to begin with. Paul Skeens was in Double-A. Those guys were playing in the SEC. That's like high A Double-A equivalent. There's no reason for those guys to be in low A. But the Padres have been aggressive. They moved up Jackson Merrill. They moved up Grant Paulson. They moved up Dylan Lesko, Robbie Snelling. It's an aggressive system. The Guardians tend to like their prospects, so I assume they like how they do things too. If they like their prospects, right? Maybe. I just wonder if there's going to be any late season promotions. In the past, when Guardians didn't promote prospects to play outside of the Arizona Rookie League or Complex League until very late. If draft picks were playing at all, you didn't see a whole lot of movement this year. Obviously, because of that 180 rule. I think I'm going to bring it with Rob Serfolio on Tuesday. With the having to add the draft picks 15 days after signing them versus waiting until the off season and being able to stash them all off season makes a big difference. So, you've already had a bunch of draft picks debut. Lynchburg's got all of them except for, Cooper Ingle, who's at Lake County, who has fit in very nicely. I'm not surprised. I don't think he'll get challenged till AA just because of his zone control. But you've got Alex Mooney, CJ Kafis, Jay Driver, Matt Jasek, and Zane Morehouse all at Lynchburg, and Johnny Tincher, who hasn't played Johnny Tincher's on the IL. That was fast. He played 1.5 games. Feel bad for the guy that he was already hurt that fast. But on Arizona, you've got Kyle Scott, Jacob Bresnahan, Keegan Zinn, Matt Wilkinson, Josh Harlow is playing out there, Johnny Edvin Kula, Tommy Hawk, Ralphy Velazquez. Ralphy Velazquez already looks very good, and Barrett Reebok. I want to leave out Barrett Reebok, but Ralphie's played pretty well. Again, Chris Welsh had good video on him as well. Swing looks good, numbers look good. This is a hard-working kid. I think it makes all the sense in the world to give him a taste of low A in like the last week. Same with Jaison Chorio. Low A though, you've got Mike Collado playing first base. Like, he was a nice story early in the year. He's undersized for first base, and he's really playing there because there's nobody else to play first base at low A. You can play CJ Kafis there now. Angel Janau is rotating between DH, second, third, and short with Jose Devers, Benjamin, and the great Carson Tucker. You've got Manuel Mejias and Robert Lopez catching in Lynchburg. Mark Filia is there. This is kind of a non-drafted free agent signing. There's at bats to be had. Even if you don't play him every day, you can play him once or twice. The big thing for him is, he's living away from home for a little bit, or he's already in Arizona though. So is he really? I don't know. Is there really much a difference doing that? So I would say getting Ralphie and Jaison Chorio because Angel Zarate should be in high A right now, and they won't do it. Chase DeLauder the last week of the season in AA. Corey Holland's played fine, but no offense to Corey Holland, he's not a prospect right now in terms of future with this team. Cesar Adrogo is spending time on the bench there, who's barely playing, and Joe Naranjo is back. You're playing a lot of Bryce Ball at first base. Like, you can move up Chase DeLauder and find at bats for him between DH and the outfield. You got enough guys. Or you can move up Jake Fox. He's played really well at the end of the season too. And even so, moving Jaison Chorio to high A and moving Angel Zarate to high A and moving Jaison Chorio to low A. Isaiah Green isn't getting a lot of playing time, and I'm sorry, he shouldn't. He's not looked good this year, and he was already on the developmental list for a reason. So if you can find at bats for Wilfredo or for Angel Zarate in his place, you do that. There are guys that can move up out of the Arizona League and get some at bats late in the year, especially those two, and especially Jaison Chorio, who's had enough at bats at this point down there. Pitchers probably not so much, but we'll see. But I'd love to see some late promotions. I'd love to see Diane Frias go to AA. I don't see any at bats for him there, but I don't think it's going to happen. So Fox and DeLauder maybe at best. If you can move other guys up from Arizona, pitching wise, there's nobody go up. I mean, Parker Messick should be in AA. There's no innings for him between Hunter Stanley, Dion, Leftwich, Carver, McKaysey, and Mace. So he's going to be stuck at high A for right now. And triple, you could move one of those guys to the AAA, but you have, Plesac, who's just kind of riding it out there, Gaddis, and then Jared Eichhoff. If you want to dump Jared Eichhoff and move somebody up, there's really nobody in AA. I would move to AAA though. Like, Hunter Stanley had a good start the other day, but he's been inconsistent. Dion, I don't think is ready. Leftwich has been hurt this year and has been down, but he's been better lately, I will say. I like Ross Carver. I'm going to talk about him in a little bit. I like McKaysey, but I'm not sure he's ready for AAA. Mace is not. So I don't think there's any room. There's nobody going from AA to AAA that I think makes a lot of sense, but maybe we'll see somebody. I don't know. We'll talk a little bit more who's hot, who's not here at the end of the podcast. Why not Bryan Lavastida? So when Cam Gallagher went on the IL, the Guardians purchased Zach Collins' contract, and brought him up to catch. He's caught 2 games. He caught one in the doubleheader, and he caught on Sunday. He's now gone for Eric Haas. Welcome home, Eric Haas, one of my favorite prospects to come through Lake County. Great dude. Completely had to work very hard. I mean, he was given quite a bit of a bonus. I don't remember the top of my head, but the Guardians did like him. Or Cleveland did like him when they drafted him and gave him quite a bit of money for his round to not go to play at Ohio State. He's a Michigan kid who went to Ohio State, so get bonus points in my book for that. And he worked really hard, though. He realized that he was going to need to hit for more power due to the position and the other things he didn't really do. He had to get the ball in the air more. He had to work on his swing. He was using a lot of data and hit tracks. And I remember him being in Akron. I talked to him about that and just trying to figure out a new swing, at age 24 or 23 in AA, which is, a lot for a guy who's trying to make it to the majors. So he learned a new swing. He had to learn new adjustments based off that swing. It was really good to talk to. It was really eye-opening. One of the first players I ever talked to that talked about using like data and analytics to help his swing out and change his approach a little bit. And I'm glad he's back. So I don't think Bryan Lavastida made sense for them, though, because you're hoping this is a short-term injury just for Cam Gallagher's sake, not for what, he does for the team. I know pitchers, have said they like throwing to him. He's obviously a pretty bad major league hitter in comparison to the rest of baseball. And it was pretty obvious whoever they brought in wasn't going to play much. Cam Gallagher wasn't playing that much to begin with, right? And I don't think anybody would have came in if David Fry was healthy, but David Fry is also hurt too. So that is another component of this. But whoever they brought in just wasn't going to play. It was going to be Bo Naylor 5 or 6 days a week anyway. So no sense there in bringing up Lavastida to play once a week. He just got his season back on track in the last few months. And I don't think it made sense to bring him up and sit him for X amount of time, whatever it ended up being, until Gallagher or Fry came back. Maybe when the rosters expand, you could have held on to him up there, but he needs to play. He just got his career back on track in terms of the offense. You're not going to get a whole lot defensively from him right now. Like, he's not going to be your backup catcher who provides, good defense. So not really the role for him right now. I do think they'll have to add him to the roster in the offseason unless they go out and trade him. I don't know. That's their thing. And Jeff Ellis, my co-host on Locked On Guardians, keeps making a good point that you have to give him a mulligan too. We gave Bo Naylor, and I will say I think Bo Naylor is the better player, the better athlete, all around, everything. But I gave Bo Naylor a mulligan based on his, rough 2021 performance coming off the pandemic. Lavastida had a big breakout in 2022, and he was added to the 40-man roster. I don't think he took a step above, or I should say 2021, and he looked like he took a step above Bo Naylor, but he has fallen back this year, and he got removed from the 40-man roster. But he's kind of, come back lately. So if we gave Bo Naylor a mulligan, I think it's fair we give Bryan Lavastida a bit of a runway here too, and see what he can do, because it's not like this system is not flush with catching depth, although the draft has improved it. You've got, Ralphy now. I kind of like some of the international signing kids, but they're far away. You've got Tincher, who is probably really a coach in the long term. You got Cooper Ingle, so there is a few more guys there, but not a lot. So we're seeing what Lavastida can do, but now is not the time he wasn't going to play. Who's been hot lately? So I mentioned I was going to talk about Cantillo. Cantillo has not had more than 2 walks in his last couple of starts. He still has got a kind of a high pitch count for 5 or 6 innings when he's going out there, but he's hit a few batters, but he's limiting the walks. So things are improving with him. The stuff looks really good, I think. Just kind of taking that next step forward. Ross Carver, I saw Ross Carver. So he struck out 12 in his last start for Akron in 6 innings, and he only needed 83 pitches to do it. That's really impressive. The start before that, he struck out, I think, 6 in 5 innings, but he also gave a 3-run homer, and he got hit a little bit. But I watched that start, and I'm like, man, and it was against Harrisburg, who has a very good lineup. They didn't have Dylan Cruz yet, but they had a lot of good guys. They had Robert Hassel, and they had James Wood. They had Brady House. That's a very good lineup. And he pitched very well against them. Missed some bats. I was really impressed. So I think Ross Carver could be kind of a sleeper pitching prospect for them, who's been really good lately. See who else. Jake Fox has been on a tear lately. I've really liked what I've seen from him. Jose Devers has 8 homers since July. He's got 10 for the season, so he's been really hot lately. Obviously, Jonathan Rodriguez has been hot in Columbus, although the strikeout to walk ratio, I think, is just kind of a shoe that's going to flip very soon. Steven Hajar had a 6-inning, 8 strikeout performance last week for Lake County. That looked really good. I continue to be high on Hajar in terms of what he, some of the ceiling. I think there's a good starter in there. The control's an issue. I don't see a changeup, so I think he's probably a reliever, but I'm willing to let him continue to keep starting in the meantime, but why not? Congrats to Ethan Hankins, first pro win last week. Ethan Hankins has made like 30 minor league starts since 2018, since he was drafted, which, is crazy considering he's been around quite a long time, and he missed 2020, missed 2021, and he missed most of 2022. So he never had a pro win. He is 1-10 in his career, but he pitched 5 innings, struck out 5, and we walked 2, reportedly like 92, 96, hit 97 on that start. First pro win. Pitcher wins we know are worthless and whatever, but always good to get that first one. It's just hard to believe it took this long for him. So kudos to Ethan Hankins. I'm still very on the fence on adding him to the 40-man roster right now. I think he'd get through. I don't think it's worth it, but we'll see. Jackson Humphreys had a very bad first start. He didn't get out of the second inning 2 weeks ago. This past week, he struck out 6 in 5 innings. Didn't walk a batter. I think he gave up a run on 2 hits. So he looked really good in his second start. Good for him. As for guys not so hot, well, let's see. Not so great I haven't not really been impressed with Tanner Burns as a reliever yet. I know he's getting used to the role, and I'm not really sure what they're doing with him overall, but, so far it hasn't gone well for him. We'll see what happens if he settles into a role. I think he needs an offseason to figure something out, because whatever he was doing this year, he was having a hard time finding consistency. Just has not looked like that guy that we thought was going to be a pretty safe, like 4 or 5 starter coming out of Auburn. But, he's had a weird developmental path with injuries, and the 2020 season, obviously, and affecting a lot of people. That's super, super unfortunate. Jake Miller had a rough start. I don't think he got out of the second inning in Lake County in his non-complex league debut. He was the Cleveland's 20th round pick in 2020 or 2021, I should say. So not a great first start for him outside of that. But like we just said, Jackson Humphreys had a horrible start, his first start outside of the complex leagues, and he bounced back to have good in his second start. So hopefully he'll turn it around. Aaron Davenport behind him gave up, I think, 7 runs or 8 runs in 5 innings. Just needed the innings out of him. Did not look good. Been very up and down this year. He's shown flashes, and he's also had some bad starts. And I kind of think he's a reliever, but we'll see. They need the innings from him as well. Been a tough year for Gabriel Rodriguez. Petey Halpin's been up and down. I'm trying to think. Carson Tucker's back off the IL. He's obviously not playing well. It's hard to even play well when you're injured half the season, and when he was playing, it hasn't been all that great. Zayden Morehouse had a better game in his second appearance in Lynchburg, but his first one was rough. All these guys making their first pro debut. I guess it should be expected. They've all kind of had a very tough pro debut or non-complex debut. So we'll see. A couple pitchers have had a rough start down in the complex league as well. So I said my prospect update will be out in the coming week after I talk to Rob Cerfolio. It's all done. I just want to, fine tune some things. And I want to get some answers from him on some guys. I want to ask about Justin Campbell. I want to ask about Dylan DeLucia. I want to ask about how Espino's rehab is going. Let's see. There's a couple other guys I want to ask about where Alexei Planez has been, how Jacob Zibbin's rehab is going. A lot of injuries I want to cover with him, and just some other developmental things this year and see what they've seen. So I will fine tune that after I talk to Rob Cerfolio this week, and then I will get that out maybe by the end of the week, I'm hoping. I was in Lake County last week for the Chase the Lauder walk-off double that was inside the park Little League homer. That was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, did not get to meet up with DeLauder to talk to him after the game. Got a little busy, apparently. However, I did get to catch up with Parker Messick. Parker Messick, 5 innings, I think 11 strikeouts 2 weeks ago in his previous start. And then on Friday this past week, he struck out 10 in 6 innings, gave up 1 run. Did not win Midwest League Player of the Week. Tough crowd. He lost out to a guy who struck out 6 in 6 innings. I don't know. The guy didn't give me runs. I guess that's really it. But Parker Messick has 21 strikeouts in his last 2 innings. Talking about a guy who's hot right now. I've really liked the way I've watched him pitch. He, has his fastball is about 89-93. He's got a good slider. He's really commanding that slider. Guys are chasing the slider. That's good. The changeup is there. He controls the run game very well. He's got good control overall. Just everything you like to see from a guy who's like a back of the rotation starter type. And, if he can get more consistently 90 to 93, 94, 95, that makes a big difference. So right now I had him at 89, 93 and hitting 94 on Friday. But again, doesn't walk a lot of guys, has two above average pitches, at least average, I would say. The fastball plays up because of his extension, his release. The slider's good, and I think he has a pretty good changeup. So, he's got 3 pitches. He's got control. He controls the run game. Things play up a little bit there. So I really like the upside there. And if he can get a little more velocity, I think he comes a long way, even more than then. So I got to catch up with Parker after the game. Actually, was when I was doing radar on him in the stands, I was sitting behind his grandparents, got to meet them. They were pretty cool, very nice people from Messick start. And actually found out he was matched up against Max Rajic, who pitched for UCLA. I can't remember the college he went to. I think it was UCLA. No, I don't think it was UCLA. I'm not sure now. I don't want to get it wrong. But it was Florida State and whoever they were playing in the Auburn Regional the year before. And those two matched up against each other in the Auburn Regional. And then they were matched up against each other on Friday. And they both pitched a whale of a game. That guy was good. Messick was good. They were matching pitch for pitch. You remember him kind of from that Auburn start too. So I'm going to play some clips from that interview. And that'll be the end of this week's podcast. So thank you all for listening, sticking with me through the inconsistent schedule this year. I promise over the offseason we'll have more interesting discussions, about the 40-man roster. I'm sure we'll have a big podcast about the 40-man roster and what's going to go on there. Going into the offseason and how things look for prospects. We'll talk about the AFL. We'll talk about the Rule 5 draft as we always do. I know people who listen to this podcast love that. So, stay tuned. We'll still have more to come for you. I promise. Tell a friend. Stick with us to the inconsistent schedule. Make sure you're listening, whether it's on wherever you get podcasts, on YouTube. Share with a friend. Leave a nice review. Or if you don't leave a nice review, tell me how I can get better, how the podcast can get better, and what you're looking for out of this. So thanks for listening. And here's Parker Messick. A couple clips from him.
Everything. We're just kind of working on new pitches and trying to develop as a player and just trying to, throw more pitches, throw better pitches, and, had the fastball, slider, change in, curve working tonight, and ended up in a good outing. There's something new every week. Right now it's trying to locate the fastball to different parts of the zone and trying to make the curveball a little bit bigger, play it off the slider a little bit better, and, the more we work on those things, just recently, got a better feel for a tighter, sharper slider, and the more I develop my pitches, the better the outings seem to come. So I'm looking forward to continue to do that and start to get better. Yeah, there's definitely a case for that. The more you throw it for the strike, the more you can kind of expand the zone later in the game, and just the ability to kind of mix the pitches tonight was really what kept them, kind of having to honor different pitches a little bit outside the zone. I've kind of done that through college. I've always just kind of had a slide step to go with the longer delivery. That's just to kind of control the run game. And, the more you can limit guys taking bags off of you and leave them where they, if they get a hit and they deserve that first bag, leave them there. And, the more you can do that, the more it keeps runners out of scoring position. That ultimately takes runners off the board and a better chance for. I'm sure that was probably pretty loud for you. They tend to be yelling quite a bit. Usually I travel big, the family always comes, so they like to yell. So it's always really cool getting to spend time with them and be able to pitch in front of them. I actually didn't even think about that until after the game, or until after I finished pitching. I was like, wait, I faced this guy, so that was pretty cool, and it ended up in a good way for us. But it was just a good game all the way around. He pitched really well, and we just had a good battle.
What do we got to do to get you Midwest Player of the Week next week? Last week it was 11 strikeouts. Tonight it was 10. What do we got to do?
Don't give up any runs. We'll never know. We try not to play for that stuff. It is cool to see it every now and then, but we just play to get better and try and get as many wins as we can.